Hi, my name is Jennifer Pardue and I am a reference assistant at the Park County Public Library. Today I'm going to show you how to make your very own journal using a binding style known as Japanese stab binding. This is an example of one I made in class last semester. So what you're going to need is some blank paper. You can use line paper, you can use printer paper, as many pages as you want. You're also going to need some sort of colored paper, whether it be construction paper or craft paper. You're going to need a pencil. You're going to need something to poke holes with. I have an awl. You'll need some scissors. You'll need some embroidery thread and a needle. You'll need a ruler, and you'll need some binder clips or some clothespins or something to just hold the book together. Let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to take your craft paper or your construction paper, whatever you chose, you're going to fold it in half. We're going to cut this. You're then going to take your printer paper or your line paper, whatever paper you decide to use, and you're going to fold that in half the same way, but we're not cutting this. Now, I'm using about 5 sheets, so it'll be about 10 pages when we're done, but you can use, like I said, as many as you want. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to want to make sure that all your paper is, that you have 2 sheets grouped together. So 2 pages. And I kind of already folded them, so they were like that, but and 2 pages. 2 pages. You're going to take your construction paper, your craft paper, and you're going to kind of, it's going to make your cover. You're going to line it up, make sure it's lined up pretty evenly. Good. You're going to take your clips, and you're just going to clip the ends, just to kind of keep them together while we're doing the punching of the holes. Now for this next step, what we're going to measure, we're going to mark some spots here. Actually, let me just put this down. You can kind of see there's 2 sets of holes. We have the inside holes and then we have the outer holes. So for this we're gonna want to measure in centimeters. So we're going to be doing inner holes and outer holes. I'm going to start on the inner holes first. You're going to do the inner holes 1 centimeter from the long edge and 1 centimeter from the short edge. These measurements don't have to be exact. You're basically just going to want an even amount of holes evenly spaced apart. Now, so that's our first hole. So then, yes, the next hole is going to be about 2 centimeters from that first hole. And then it's going to be 1 centimeter. And it's just going to alternate 2 centimeters, inner holes are going to be about 1 centimeter above these, but they're also going to be in the middle of your 2 centimeter marks. So about right there. You just eyeball these. So, just to summarize, your inner holes are going to be 1 centimeter from the short edge and 1 centimeter from the long edge, and then it's going to be 2 centimeters. 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 1 centimeter, and then these inner holes are going to be 1 centimeter from your inner holes, but in the middle of the 2 centimeter marks. This part gets a little dangerous, so just be very careful. You're just going to want to punch through all the layers. And if you have multiple layers, this is also where that scrap paper can come in handy, because then you can just set your scrap paper on top and just do a few layers at a time. And you're just going to want to punch all the way through and make sure they're really good holes. If you don't have an awl, you can use a push pin, really anything sharp, and just be very careful. This style of Japanese stab binding that I'm doing is actually called tortoiseshell stitching. Now that we finished the stabbing, you're going to want to get your embroidery thread, Now, the amount that you need, you can just eyeball it. I say about 6 times the length of your project plus some, because it never hurts to have too much. Now we're gonna get started with our stitching. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is lift up some of your pages. And then you're gonna wanna stitch in this first inner hole here. You're gonna wanna stitch up through that hole and pull it most of the way through. Not all the way, just most of the way. You wanna leave a little bit hanging so you can tie things to the end of it if you want to. You're then gonna wanna come through the back, through that same hole, and push it through. What we're doing is creating a loop. Make sure your tail doesn't get tangled up in this. So now we have our first loop. Then you're gonna come through this very first hole, the one that we skipped, and stitch through that, through the front. And you're gonna repeat that same thing, go right back through that hole through the front. Fix it, there we go. And then you're gonna come back through that first hole we went through. So now we're at the top of the house, basically. That's what the shape kind of reminds me of. And you're gonna go through this, the third hole from the top. And then again, right back through that hole. We're going to go back to that first hole. Back to that first hole. And then you're going to come over to this hole. Go ahead and put it there. And then we're just going to start over again. Then we get to this final stitch. You're actually going to wrap this around and go through that first, that hole in the end. And then we're just gonna go weave it, just weave it into those missing stitches. And when you get to the end, you're just gonna go right through. This is gonna be a little bit tricky. You don't wanna go all the way through. We actually need to meet up with your tail. So find where you ended your tail at. Well, you can take the clips off at this point. Find where your tail ended, because this is where we're gonna tie it. So don't go all the way through. Just go to where that tail was. And we're done. We are done. Now at this point you can either tie it off and trim your ends, or you can add some sort of embellishment on the end. So for this one, because this was cat themed, I tied some feathers and a bell to it. You can add beads, you can add all sorts of things in your book. I'm just gonna go ahead and tie it up. And then you can just trim your ends, or if you want it, you can even leave it as a bookmark. And now it's a bookmark. And that is your journal.